Greetings. My name is Michael Miller. This is a Michael Miller Pilates broadcast out to my Cornu course students or anyone interested in looking at the original work of Joseph Pilates and trying to find an ideal in there somewhere. I have this in my hand, which is a notebook, which is a reminder to sell you on the idea of getting on Google Play Michael Miller Pilates Reformer or Reformer Michael Miller Pilates. It's $1. Get it while you can, because in my experience, apps don't always last out there in the ether and available to grab. Today just has one title, and that's Go Beyond Gimbal. And a gimbal is something sort of like a gyroscope, in that it's meant to allow a structure to stay level in space, even if the environment around it, see, this is a compass, even if the environment around it changes. And gimbals are in gyroscopes, which is why I showed you the gyroscope. And I guess number 2 ought to be a whip at the ears. All right, so there are times when you treat your head as a gimbal so that your concentration and your eyes can maintain a horizon so that you know your orientation in space. Okay? Just like a plane's gimbal helps you see the orientation of a plane in space. Relative to what? Well, gravity, right? So, I'm all wound up on this. There's straight up and down, ears and shoulders lining up, hips, if you're, there's alignment between endpoints. It's possible. And then where your head, first of all, to me, your head only gets in the right place by engaging in Cornu Tension to control its ability to rotate at this axis in connection to your shoulder's ability to rotate at its axis. For example, in the snake, whether you're doing it on the mat or on the reformer, when you come out, and you come out with a long neck, there's one position where you have Cornu tension between shoulders and ears, and that holds a smooth line, a smooth curve that includes the ears, the shoulders, and the hips. If you let go of that Cornu tension at the ears and let yourself rotate up and back, you let go of that Cornu tension to get range of motion. But to me, it feels much more vulnerable because it's all about just the range in the neck, and there's not as much connection when you're broken neck, like your broken wrist. If your wrist is this way, you're broken, rather than strong this way. To be like this in your wrist is weak. To be like this in your wrist or this is strong. To be like this in your neck is weak. To be like this is strong. So, as a passionate Pilates observer, when I see movement, I watch the control of the head. And if you're reaching for line, for elongation between hips, shoulders, and ears, cornu tension between shoulders and ears holds the head in a particular place on that line. If you choose to let go of the cornu tension and rotate at the ears, okay, I would encourage you to initiate your return by returning back through the ears to lead the return. So I have a whip around here somewhere. Your body whips out. It's thick at one end with a handle, and at the other end, it's very small and thin. If you're Thank you. When you sinuously move through your spine, it takes on the property and the physics of the whip. And if you're controlling the engagement of tension at your endpoints and connecting them point to point with cornu tension, because that's how it happens, in my opinion, then coming out with your head is a line that stays aligned, ears, shoulders, and hips. And then if you choose to let go and explore range and ears, okay, but from there, the coming back around the ears is a strengthening of the grip that can lead the way through the whole return. Yes, that's what I'm trying to say is, initiate your movements from your endpoints. All those words. Initiate your movement from your endpoints. Generally, that's your hips. That's the key source of initiation, your core. But as you go from hips to shoulders to ears, like a whip stretching out or going into extension, or then coming back in flexion, recognize that the ears are the most distant endpoint from your hips, ears to hips, hard time, ears to hips, and that your choice is intentional to return back, and that choice starts with the rotation at the ears. So, very infrequently, I think, your head is in a gimbal position in Pilates because you're pursuing a line, well, straight up and down, gimbal, yes, I'm digging myself a hole here. There's a natural inclination for us to hold our heads level to the horizon so that we orient ourselves in space, just like a level does to give a take on our orientation in space. It's all about gravity, right? And so, in the swan, wherever it happens, in extension, that cornu neck is really the key to holding the line. And if you choose to let go of the ears and go yoga and loose neck and compression in the back of the neck, okay, it's up to you. Be careful. Don't really hurt you. But coming out of anything like that, the rotation at the ears is the return of the effort. The going out, I think, creates a line, ears, shoulders, and hips, 3 points on a curve that are all connected in cornu tension. Is that strongest, and that distributes the load most evenly. I wish you knew all that, right? So my comment is go beyond the gimbal and recognize that you want the orientation of your head in space as you're moving, especially when you're doing something like Pilates movement. Your head, the position of your head, the position of my head, I want to be intentional, not accidental. And in being intentional in where my head is in the performance of an effort, especially when I'm going extension, like into swan or back out of it, into it, I'm holding the line, 3 points on the line, smooth curve, moving apart from one another because of the nature of Cornu tension, because they're at the inflection point, and there at the inflection point, you necessarily elongate from the engagement. That's why when you do Pilates and you get all this length, it's decompressive. Oh, and something, okay, so that was my number one comment. Be intentional rather than accidental as to how you move your head, and recognize that the head's always going to want to gimbal. It's always trying to orient itself in space. But in movement, and using the capacity of the musculature in your neck and your head to oppositionally engage against the shoulders, you use that to create elongation, to find the sensation of alignment, to trigger more uniform usage. And rotation at the ears is the end of the whip. It's the end of the whip. It's the end of when you go up, there's the rotation of the ears. Sure, you can rotate like that and back, but in the return, it's the rotation around the ears, whether giving or coming back in, that is the most distant articulature of force, rotation, of connection, endpoint, right? So don't miss the use of endpoint at the ears to control where your head is in space. Make it your intention, not an accident. And it shows up when you see it done, where someone goes out and they know where they're at in their body and in their neck. They release the head if they want and come back. And in the coming back, there's all that length and reach and rotation at the ears that leads the whole way back like a whip curling back in on itself. So go beyond the gimbal. Pilates is the survivor's reaction to the physics that it finds itself in. I have found it very helpful to explain to a person what the core is by giving everybody a sheet of paper and telling them to roll it up without crumpling it widthwise, so you get a little bit of roll happening. Okay. And then I compare that to the grip at the hip and say, okay, are you strongest this way? Well, I don't even bother with that, but are you strongest this way or this way? Just to establish how that grip works and which way you want the grip to work and how you want the fingers, the grip to, the tighter in you get, the closer to the center of the core you get, the more torsion you have on the line and the more strength and stability you have in space, right? The stronger the grasp of your endpoint at the hips. Have them roll that paper up and then leave them out by telling them that sometimes this is just, it just doesn't click. So you're not expecting them to get it. Because it's a very intuitive thing. You tell them without unrolling it and without crunching it, roll it up tighter. Everybody almost always goes like this. But there's tension, you can only do that so far with the paper, right? And then some people, they wet their finger, why? To make friction and go to the inside of it and draw in tighter from the inside. This is Pilates. This is the engagement of the core. This is understanding that your muscular engagement is about going to the heart of the matter, to the inside of it, and muscularly drawing yourself in. I want my tape measure now, and I don't see it here. Drawing itself in like a tape measure, because I was using it. Imagine that, using a tape measure. This effort here of making it smaller can only go so far from the outside in. Right? This is a great tool to give a person a grasp of the sense that the hip axis, the hips, the core is a grip, and that you want it to develop your ability to make a grip, and that grip happens by going to the center and drawing yourself in tighter from the center. Oh my gosh, sorry. I went for my spring and it's attached to the power cord, and we had a studio malfunction. Here's the spring. Here's the spring. Right? And there it is at your hips. And when you shut off fluids and solids from your middle, when you shut off urine flow and when you hold in everything, right, you are using musculature that has the nature of a grip in it, because that's how one establishes stability in space. Rotation stabilizes movement. It's been around for a long time as one of my 3-word aphorisms. So the rotation, when you learn how to control core, there's also the shoulders, but the ears, and I'm talking about today, your head is more than a gimbal. And when it's in a gimbal, fine, but coming out of the gimbal or going into it, the rotation around the ears is the farthest you get in the effort to then curl back in. Make that intentional, not accidental. All right, so that's my thing today. Buy the app, Pilates Google. No. Google Play. Reformer, Michael Miller Pilates, $1. It's as good a list as exists, I believe, and you really want to have it in your possession before it falls out of availability, right? Why is that? Because live doesn't live forever. Live can't last. Live can't live forever, right? Read between the lines. See behind the curtain. Add 2 and 2. Direct your own thinking. And direct your thinking when it comes to the intentional position of your head. And when you start or stop to create rotation at the ears, and how you use the rotation at the ears through Cornu Tension to connect to your shoulders and on to the rest of your body to get uniform usage, because you need uniform usage to fulfill Joe's promise of uniform development, right? And so uniform usage is a lot like fluorescence in that there are batteries in here that set up at 2 points that then translates that into fluorescent energy, which is equally dispersed in the tube. We want our muscular engagement to be as evenly dispersed as fluorescent light is in a tube. And of course, to do that, you have to play with it, and then you have to find the feeling of where your head is in space, and how it connects to the rest of your body, and then how it really can be the lead for any kind of rotation that initiates at that end of your body, your head, right? And then, okay, become a licensed affiliate. Michael Miller Pilates, licensed affiliate. If anything, that's what I'm selling to you, to use my trademark, this trademark, as an indication to distinguish yourself that you have an understanding of Pilates that is ideal, and that this language of endpoints and Cornu Tension is spoken wherever you see the Michael Miller trademark. I think my camera's off. All right, dear. Let me leave you with Geist.